think the world's changed much?
Changed?
Nah.
It is 2021, and the world has gone insane. Last year was the year. There are those who would like to imagine that 2020 was nothing special, and I want some of their medication, because the rest of us stared at the world like it was a train wreck. A circus train's wreck with the wounded animals running around and the clowns screaming in agony. The insanity has never hit this pitch during my lifetime. I mean, I've seen riots in the past, and I've seen weird politicians and various countercultures, but nothing like modern times. Previous generations have imagined living in this insanity.
This country is going straight to hell.
Civilization is crumbling.
And undoubtedly some of the fuses to this explosive era were lit long ago, but no previous generation met the insanity. At least, no living generation. This is something new. I almost feel bad for kids who never knew the world before, because they don't even really know what kind of craziness they've been born into. Of course, very few of today's youngsters are aware of much of anything anyway. And that's just another part of the insanity. Life is delivered to us on small screens that we carry around with us. Our politics today? We live in a world where a man running for president was a former reality TV star who once appeared in a professional wrestling performance. And he was the kind of guy who would use the word motherfuckers in a speech while running for our highest office.
Listen, you motherfuckers, we're taxing 25%.
And he was elected. He did last only a single term, and that might have seemed like the return to normalcy that his opposition wanted, except that his successor is, if anything, every bit as bizarre.
And that I'm going to beat Joe Biden.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
I'm ready on day one after more than 3 years in office. Why isn't Donald Trump ready? Mr. President, wake up.
And this guy has a family who is even more colorful than the former president's was. Politics in general has gotten strange anyway. Our politicians are more like activists. The resolution is passed. The city will donate $10,000 for a mural depicting the struggle for self-determination of dyslexic Serbo-Croatian alternative families to be built in Law Park. We have seen riots, not one or two, but a rapid-fire succession of fires and vandalism and looting, and it's been all over the nation and beyond. And it is reported on as though it is not happening.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
And this is all to say nothing of the virus paranoia.
Shut it down! Shut it down forever!
Businesses close. People can't come close to each other, and masks are everywhere. Fuck the Simpsons. The Princess Bride made the real long-shot prediction.
Why are you wearing a mask? Were you burned by acid or something like that?
Oh, no, it's just they're terribly comfortable. I think everyone will be wearing them in the future.
These days, Hollywood is hated. Now you think about how bizarre that really is. Comedy is virtually dead. Even professional sports is dwindling into oblivion. How hard and how constantly do you have to insult your own fans to push them away from professional sports? Of course, the leagues themselves blame the plague for their troubles, as though people can't watch a dozen different ways anyway. It's almost a blessing to them that they can't allow people into the stands. We can't watch the attendance continue to fade. It's fascinating to see them put up cardboard cutouts of fans to make it seem like people are actually there. That may be the saddest thing I have ever seen.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, Warren, how's it going?
What are these? Party cutouts. I got met them at the Lonely Guy store at 81st Street in Lexington Avenue. When I first saw them, it seemed like a pretty weird idea. But it turns out they're a lot of fun. And real good company, too. You'd be surprised. I am.
Even advertising has turned weird. Selling a product is not important anymore, even to the people with careers in selling products. Selling a cause is all that matters. 2021 will be every bit as crazy, at least. The change of date has done nothing to slow down the insanity. Should I go on? No, you get the picture. I'm sure you could list a dozen different things off the top of your head that I did not mention. The question is, what drove the world crazy? It's fun to point to the year 2020, and it is true that that entire year will be a date that will live in infamy. However, even though the shitstorm made landfall in 2020, it has been approaching steadily for quite a while. Why? What caused it? For an answer, I'll turn to the esteemed Dr. Hunter S. Thompson. Not too long ago, I created a version of my avatar based on Thompson, in what was probably a pretty ham-fisted joke. But it can come in handy today while I read an excerpt from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. But wait, hold on. I have to veer off topic for a moment. I cannot talk about Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas on the internet without giving some serious advice to those unfamiliar with it. If you do an internet search on Fear and Loathing, the first entry you will probably see will be a listing for the shitty movie starring Johnny Depp. Do not watch that crap. Or at least read the book before watching it, because it is not a worthy adaptation. In all fairness, no cinematic adaptation of Fear and Loathing could ever be worthy. Thompson's writing simply does not translate to film. If you really must watch some celluloid version of the legendary Dr. Thompson, then instead of the Fear and Loathing movie, you should watch Where the Buffalo Roam. That is a film that seeks to capture the legend of the man, rather than simplify any of his books into dumbed-down, easily digested distractions. Besides, Bill Murray made a much better Hunter Thompson than Johnny Depp ever could.
You know, I hate to advocate drugs or liquor, violence, insanity to anyone. But in my case, it's worked.
Okay then, on to the reading. This takes place when Thompson and his attorney are at the Circus Casino in Vegas. There was one particular attraction that bothered him. Stand in front of this fantastic machine, my friend, and for just 99 cents, your likeness will appear, 200 feet tall, on a screen above downtown Las Vegas. 99 cents more for a voice message. Say whatever you want, fella. They'll hear you. Don't worry about that. Remember, you'll be 200 feet tall. Jesus Christ. I could see myself lying in bed in the Mint Hotel, half asleep and staring idly out the window, when suddenly a vicious Nazi drunkard appears 200 feet tall in the midnight sky, screaming gibberish at the world. Woodstock über alles. We will close the drapes tonight. A thing like that could send a drug person careening around the room like a ping-pong ball. Hallucinations are bad enough. But after a while, you learn to cope with things like seeing your dead grandmother crawling up your leg with a knife in her teeth. Most acid fanciers can handle this sort of thing. But nobody can handle that other trip. The possibility that any freak with $1.98 can walk into the Circus and suddenly appear in the sky over downtown Las Vegas, 12 times the size of God, howling anything that comes into his head. Thompson was right about that. Hallucinations are one thing, because that's a personal demon only. But nobody can handle that other trip. A massive TV screen on which any idiot can appear for $2 and say whatever stupid or crazy shit he likes. That's just too much. And you don't have to be a drug person to be shaken by that if the wrong guy shows up on that 200-foot tall screen praising evil. What does that have to do with modern insanity, though? Well, just imagine that scenario absolutely everywhere. The screen is not 200 feet tall. It's just a computer screen, or worse, a smartphone screen. And it doesn't hang over Main Street somewhere. It's right there in your own home, or even in your hand. And making it worse, it doesn't cost $2 to spout some nonsense to the world. It is completely free for anyone, anywhere, to say what they want to the entire world. And they do. Everyone everywhere shares their thoughts and opinions online to everyone, friends and strangers alike, all the time. Every opinion exists, and every opinion is amplified, with the result that every opinion spreads. And the louder, more fantastic opinions are the ones that receive the most attention. Thus, the insanity. Everyone knew that there were all kinds of different worldviews out there, but seeing and hearing them all every day drove the world pretty nuts. No matter how crazy you thought people were, knowing it for certain was pretty demoralizing. And the only cure for that demoralization was to become a part of the noise. People joined in the mass debate, everyone choosing their isms and biases without care, and howling them into the cacophony. And whatever you were saying, there would be those who would agree. What a remarkable superpower to have, to determine the truth and have it returned to you by like-minded people. The internet was a magic mirror that knew all possibilities, but only showed you the ones you wanted to see. Even the ideas that disagree with you become little more than verification that your opposition is alive and well and doing damage to society, no matter who your opposition is. Who is responsible for the evils of the world? Well, obviously, it's the West Virginian Antiques Association. And as it turns out, there are other people who blame the Senior Citizens Parachuting Club for the rise of earthquakes, hangnails, and illiteracy. And because you can easily find other people who are terrified of the Kalamazoo High School Audio Video Club, it becomes very clear that your own fears are valid. People believe what they hear, and now they hear everything. I fully expect to argue with my best friends over whether or not Magritte's Son of Man is now a symbol of the Anokar theocrat movement that is terrorizing the capital of Latveria. I know that I'm going to have to explain why it is I don't believe that the nation of Elbonia interfered in the local elections of the tri-state area. And I refuse to believe that I'm a racist just because I don't support the Exotic Animal Vaccination League. It's fear, hatred, and fanaticism everywhere. A lot of ordinary people became fanatics.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
The people who did not become fanatics still have a hard time weaving through the maze of confusion that modern society has become. What we have is the marketplace of ideas. I have always heard lovely, golden-hearted idealism that assures me that sunlight is the best disinfectant and that the good ideas will just naturally rise to the top. Well, as it turns out, the marketplace of ideas does not resemble a maturing social consciousness that moves towards more liberating and rational concepts. Instead, the marketplace of ideas resembles all the worst parts of Lord of the Flies and Apocalypse Now. It is not the marketplace of ideas. It is the arena of ideologies. Now, I do have to make something clear about my message here. This is not some wishy-washy, both sides are bad kind of thing. What I'm bemoaning is not the division itself. What I'm talking about is the rise of shrieking propaganda over conversation. And by propaganda, I do not mean state or media propaganda. I mean personal propaganda, because the internet has empowered every person to become a part of a propaganda league. People don't bother to reflect. They just comment, post, and repost as a reflex. If someone tells you that they read a Facebook post explaining that the Red Cross is really a front for Lord Dracula's Vampire League, then you will not be able to convince that person that it is not true. In fact, if you do try to convince them, then later that day they will make 3 different posts belittling those who are so stupid they can't see through the vampire's plots. What's more, other people will agree with them and reassure them. Some will try to counter that online, but just look at any comment section anywhere and see what happens. It isn't good. The ability of the common man to express his thoughts online is what drove the world to insanity. But what do we do about it? Now that we've found the cause, what is the solution? There isn't one. The insanity is what you need to accept. This is the best of all possible worlds. Or at least it would be if people would stop trying to cure the insanity. The only way to stop people from expressing themselves is to censor them. And that cure is far worse than the insanity. That much I'm not going to expound upon. If you're not already aware of the evils of censorship, then I'm going to have to assume that you read an article that you believed in about how the sinister threat of the Blue Meanies disinformation campaign is the greatest threat to society, and controlling their disinformation is our only hope. No, this video is not about censorship. That is a separate subject. Because censorship aside, the world is crazy. And what I will say is that this is better than the alternative. That alternative being the world before the internet. The world would be a more tranquil and easier place to live in if you did not have to know that your second cousin is an anti-dentite flat earther and a film purist. All the same, when I see blog posts and videos trying to explain to me that video sharing sites are bad for modern issues and that social media is bad for politics, I have to disagree. It is possible that some particular sites are bad for the world, but in general, it is a good thing that everyone has their own pulpit. It is a good thing that every movement can gather a following. What you're seeing is the result of freedom. The result of freedom is chaos. A golden society is not the result of freedom. I embrace the insanity. I would rather live in a madhouse than a monastery. I would rather do battle with insults and semantics than isolate myself from the lunacy. Let the meme lords and the wokesters battle it out like the sharks and the jets. That is better than the alternative. I am something of an optimist, though, so I do believe that the hurricane will eventually subside into a mere thunderstorm as soon as society begins to understand the new rules and methods. But have no illusions. The bizarre culture of clashing ideologies is the thing that we have worked towards for generations. Learn to live with it. You can easily imagine a better world, but you cannot have one.